Welcome to the most important week of the year for the podcast industry. Welcome to Podcast Movement 2025.
Thank you everyone for coming today. My name is Caleb Mansfield and I'll be moderating our panel on why promo codes are no longer and why we think advertisers, agencies, publishers should be looking at performance marketing now for their podcasting campaigns. We have a great panel today. We have Heather Roestamadji at the end. She is a senior product manager at Claritas, focused on bringing optimize and measurement products to their clients. We have Otto in the middle. He's a sales director at SXM. He focuses on direct-to-consumer clients and helps with the media planning on podcasting, streaming, and satellite campaigns. And last but not least, directly to my left, we have Kristen Valentine. She's the head of audio at Ocean Media, and she focuses on helping media planning with podcasting, streaming, satellite broadcasting, and a performance-driven kind of view. So we are going to get started right away. We're going to kind of take a step back and talk about why we think promo codes and vanity URLs led to so many issues when looking at measurement for advertisers and marketers, and why we think performance marketing should be the way forward for advertisers. So I'll open it up to anyone who wants to jump in first, but take it away.
Right. Hello everybody, can you hear me? Awesome, all right, we got the thumbs up. So I work with performance-based advertisers, and part of proving out this space is being able to see that performance and make sure that it works. Think 3, 4, probably more so 4 years ago, everything was tracked through a promo code, and if you're trying to prove out this space, a promo code will only be directional at best. You're missing out on so much information that attribution can give you. And so really the biggest hurdle is if you want to, as an advertiser, to look and see if the space is going to work for you, you're missing out on so much information that a promo code just can't give you.
Yeah, if you think about how people consume audio, they're most likely not going to a vanity URL, right? If you're anything like me, you listen to audio when you're working out, when you're driving, when you're washing the dishes. And if I hear something interesting, I'm most likely not going to a vanity URL right away. I'm going to my computer, searching it, Googling it, so that vanity URL won't necessarily be effective. For promo codes, historically, I know they worked. They were a way to track attribution when nothing else is available. But nowadays, people either, one, they forget the code. 2, they remember it, but then they go to the landing page, see a promo code there, 20% off free shipping, and then they take that code. Or 3, they've heard that ad, but they've also heard it on other podcasts, or they've seen it on other platforms. And then when they go to the website, there's only one space to put a code. So it makes it hard to credit that right placement.
Yeah, and just like when we were talking about when we were getting ready to do this, with AI, you can just kind of search and see what promo code should I be using, whether you heard the ads or not. And so that also lends itself to something that's not accurate because they didn't even listen to your show or advertisement using that promo code. And so not only are you underreporting, but it's also maybe not accurate reporting if you're only relying on that. It has its place and time for sure, but making sure that you're looking at attribution to get the whole picture view of who was exposed and later converted is really crucial.
Yeah, and Otto, I think what you said about so many sources of gathering promo codes now, you can go on Reddit and find promo codes, you have apps like Honey, etc. So the promo code is very saturated, and there's so many different ways to get cheaper and better promo codes, so it's a great point. Do you think there was a moment when the industry kind of realized, hey, we need better attribution, we need different ways to look at performance from podcasting? Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
I think the aha moment was, again, if you're trying to prove out the space and see if it's going to work for you. Perfect example, just what Heather was saying. I've worked with a furniture company where it's you have high ticket items and you're relying on a promo code that you're trying to drive those conversions to see if the space is working for you. And maybe the offer is use furniture 10 to get 10% off. Is that enough of an incentive to drive to use the promo code? So you're not able to capture everything because, again, who's going to be incentivized by 10% off? ChatGPT as well too. You can go there and you can type in for whatever furniture company and say, I'm looking at this specific couch, what's the best offer? and you're going to use that. And then you think too, well, outside of a promo code, if you're using survey data, for example, or even a drop down and you select, how did you hear about us? I heard it on podcast. The drop down, you type in the promo code, what you thought you could remember. It's just so inaccurate. So I think that really pushed the space forward to realize, like, if you want to get into this space as an advertiser, prove out the channel, you need a better way to track, and you're just not going to get that from a URL or promo code. So anyway, I think that really just pushed the space forward, that you need the attribution.
I think things like promo codes, historically, they worked in the past because, one, the space was small and there wasn't a lot of podcasts. Two, most DR buyers were just used to those DR metrics. But then over time, these bigger brands started coming into the space, and these bigger brands have been used to buying on other platforms, right? Platforms with much more developed attribution. And so those old legacy methods couldn't hold themselves up anymore because things were being undercounted. From where I sit, it's not so much that we've been moving away from the legacy methods, it's just that now advertisers realize that there's more to the picture. And there's a demand now from these buyers for more credible cross-channel attribution. And so credit to Claritas, and other vendors for coming to the table with things like pixel-based attribution, modeled measurement, where now all a buyer has to do is open up their computer, pull up a dashboard, adjust their look-back windows, and they can get a really clear sense of performance.
Yeah, and the other thing that, promo codes aren't really lending themselves to as the industry has evolved and marketers have evolved is understanding the incremental impact of campaigns. Promo code give you zero insight into, is this really a new customer or not? And so being able to add incrementality into the mix to understand how impactful my campaign is into driving net new customers for me is also really, needed.
Yeah, definitely. So Otto, you briefly mentioned pixel-based attribution, which is kind of where we're going with this term attribution we've been mentioning. So how have advances in identity resolution, deterministic approaches, how have they changed how you measure audio performance? What solutions do you use and how do you use them?
I think Otto actually has more insight than I do. And so moving away from the promo code, before when you would try to prove out certain shows, you would count how many promo codes that show received within a week time span or even a month time span and evaluate, is this working for me within that month, and then go in and try to make optimizations off of how many promo codes or URL redemptions you're getting. And it's directional at best, where how do you make optimizations based off of promo codes where you have attribution? You can see full funnel leads, purchases, and really understand that audience that you're trying to target so you can improve upon your advertising and get more.
Yeah, I think the fact that now we can capture listeners even when they convert later is huge. The fact that you can map to a specific ad exposure, right? Device ID, IP address, or in streaming, we have logged in data. We can map back to a specific conversion event and have enough insights to show the path to purchase. So before, all we could really go to a buyer was, hey, here's how many people heard your ad. Now I can go to a meeting, I can say, out of your spend, here's how many people heard your ad. Here's how many people went to your product page. Here's how many people went to your checkout page. And here's how many people converted and drove a sale. So now we can have the insights to show, like Kristen mentioned, the path to purchase. And if we notice that people are getting caught on the product page and not making their way to checkout, now we can say things, hey, let's mention more benefits in your audio spot and help influence buyer behavior. Like Kristen mentioned, now we can optimize mid-campaign rather than the end of the campaign. So ultimately, just more insights. It helps us connect the dots, and we can tell a much more comprehensive story to clients too.
And I think, we work well together because I'm reaching out to Otto saying, hey, we've been on X show for, the advertiser's been on X show for a month now, and we're just not seeing conversions towards maybe a specific targeted audience. Well, we can work together to optimize that and figure out how can we improve this campaign.
Yeah, and I think tying back, Otto, to one thing you said earlier on, it also helps you compare touch points as well, right? Where promo codes, you only put in a single promo code from a single podcast. Now with true pixel-based attribution, you can say, this device listened to this podcast, this show, and potentially this form of satellite or broadcasting, right? And you can start to tie those points together, which I think is also a very important point when it comes to modern-day attribution. So Kristen, what's the most impactful way that you've used audience segments to look at behavioral targeting for your audio campaigns?
So this is where I also work closely with Otto because I do a lot of targeted buys. So we're targeting specific audiences with our network partners to be able to layer in outside of just, say, again, I'll bring up a furniture client where they're trying to push their 10% off offer. And the demo is women 25, 54, household income 100K plus. I'll share that information with Otto and say, hey, Otto, we want to run a targeted buy. This is who we're going after. What additional layers can you help add to this? Then from there, we can kind of tweak the campaign to see if maybe we got too granular, too niche, or we open it up. But yeah, I'll let Otto kind of, I guess, go into those segments and what that looks like to help.
Yeah, I think it's just asking Kristen, like, what's your ideal customer profile look like? How old are they? What life stage are they in? Are they parents? Are they not parents? Do they have kids? How many kids? What content do they consume? What are their hobbies? And based on that, we'll just build out an audience segment recommendation for her. But it's also important to note that we should build out lines that are parents against non-parents, just to see does one perform better, and then be able to optimize using those insights too.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I think we've made it a record 11 minutes without mentioning AI. So, Otto, I'm gonna break that. How do you think AI optimization is changing the day-to-day decisioning for marketers, agencies, and then for publishers like yourself?
Yeah, I like this question. Before, it used to be a lot of A/B testing, right? So we would need clients to send over 2 versions of audio or 2 versions of a display ad. And so we would have to rely on the client's marketing team or their copywriting team to send that over. But oftentimes, clients don't have that bandwidth. They are prioritizing other forms of creative, and audio is often overlooked and not focused upon. Now, with tools like Claritas' AI personalization product, all a buyer has to do now is put together a list of different metrics: age, gender, voice, CTA, music bed, different product benefits that they want to highlight. Take all of that, take all those creative variations, and give it to Claritas, where then Claritas uses AI to put together 10 to 15 different variations of that audio spot, serve it to the audience, and then figure out what the most optimal set of attributes is. A good way I like to break this down is, imagine that we're all preparing for a dinner party, and we're stressing out because we don't know what to cook. So you go to your pantry, you pull some things out. You go to your fridge, you pull some things out. You go to the store and you buy a couple of ingredients. You have all these different ingredients in front of you. You take that, you give it to Claritas, and Claritas starts cooking 10 to 15 different variations of that meal. It'll give this meal to this person, this meal to this person, this meal to this person. And based on what the real-time feedback is, it'll use machine learning to figure out what the tastiest dish and what the most well-received dish is. And once it figures out that optimal dish, now it's serving that dish to everybody. So you can see from a buyer's point of view, and I guess even from a chef's point of view, it's quicker, less time consuming, and you get way better results.
Yeah, that's a great example. And you're talking about creative when you're talking about AI optimization, but there's so many different ways we can look at it as well. We've been talking about audience optimizations in the AI space recently, media optimization when you don't just think about podcasting, but other forms of media. So kind of on that note, I know we're at Podcast Movement, so it's a podcast conference, but I'm sure a lot of people here also work in other forms of digital media if you're at an agency or a partner like SXM. So Kristen and Otto, when you're thinking about holistic buys, not just podcasting, but streaming, satellite, broadcast, how important is it to see all of them compared to each other? And what challenges do you still see or still face when trying to do so?
So most advertisers are still wanting to compare apples to apples for all of their channels. And unfortunately, like podcast audio, anything that falls under that umbrella is still segmented out. You can't really look at it under one umbrella. So I know a lot of the advertisers that I do work with run media mix models to try to get that information to see if audio in general is working for them. But yeah, there just needs to be a better solution because there is a need out there for it, but hopefully that's in the pipeline.
Yeah, one of the selling points of SiriusXM Media is that we can put satellite, podcasting, and streaming on the same media plan. No other vendor can do that. That's what makes us stand apart. But if I put my media buyer hat on, and I look at someone who has 3 different platforms, I'm like, great, you've got expansive reach. But if I can't measure each of those platforms using the same vendor with the same attribution model, well, now it's a little bit of a Frankenstein approach. Streaming's measured this way, podcasting this way, satellite's measured this way. Each platform does really well. It's got great results, but it's not as cohesive than if you were to say, we have 3 different platforms, and Claritas shows that we drove lift here, here, and here. I think that we'll get there very soon. We can do it already on streaming and podcasting. And when we can do it on satellite, thanks to our friends at Claritas, I'd say watch out.
And Kristen, not to go off script, but you mentioned media mix modeling and kind of audio spot in that. Do you think audio in general is getting kind of an unfair shake when it comes to media mix modeling? Do you see it falling behind, or do you think it's looking, it's being compared to other channels correctly at this point. Do you have any insights on that?
I definitely don't think it's been looked at fairly. And I think from what I keep hearing, it's just unbelievable how much, I mean, if you're going from a promo code attribution, it's unbelievable to those that are looking at the difference in performance. And what I don't think they understand is when you're tracking through a promo code, you're not capturing everything. So then when you switch that over to performance-based attribution and the tags, it's so much more reliable where you have this insight into how much better it probably is working. Because if you think it's working through a promo code, it's going to be working that much better and that much harder for you going through a tag and actually tracking.
I would say too, like that's a common challenge we face in the attribution industry is they think that the performance is too good to be true, but if you've only been relying on promo codes, then you've been historically underreporting for probably years at this point. And so it's actually more accurate reflection of how your campaign is performing. And like it's a hard pill to swallow to understand that you've been underreporting on something for years when you see attribution data for the first time.
Yeah.
Those media mix models come in and podcast looks amazing. I'm not surprised, but everybody else is. And how do you explain that? The only explanation is, well, if you were looking at the promo code performance previously, well, it's no surprise. I'm like, yeah, it looks amazing because it's so untapped and your message is a lot clearer and it's uncluttered compared to other channels, other spaces.
Yeah, and it's different than other spaces too, right? When you're comparing it to display, CTV, you're looking at a screen or you're clicking on something, and so it's a little easier to track that platform to platform. Audio tried to solve that with the promo code, but as we've talked about, it definitely lacks in what some of those other channels do. So looking at true modern attribution is definitely, the way to move forward.
Promo code was a good start, but we're advanced now. Like I said, that was about 4 years ago where it was heavily relied upon, and now there's no excuse to not use attribution.
Yeah, that's a great point. So kind of moving forward, looking at the future of audio measurement, what are some trends you see emerging in the next year or two? And do you think this will help improve the clarity in the audio space and kind of help it be on that even playing field we've been talking about?
I think the advantages of AI, and I'll have Heather better speak to this, but just with the creative testing and what Otto had said earlier too, being able to serve very specific creative to audiences where you know that copy is going to resonate and drive conversions, AI has the opportunity and advantages to do that. Is it still being worked through and it's not an exact science yet, but it's definitely getting close, and I do see that being like the next big probably advancement in the space is instead of back to just A/B promo code testing, now you have different iterations of different pieces of copy that are going to work with different types of audiences. So I think it's going to be huge.
Yeah, I think another one is incrementality. I think the beauty of podcasts is that there's something for everybody. There's a ton of them: comedy, sports, health and wellness, society and culture. Imagine being able to say, here's 10 podcasts, and here's how many unique people that you can reach. But then if you say, hey, if we add these 5 other podcasts, here's how many more people that you can incrementally reach that you're otherwise not reaching if you didn't buy these 5 podcasts. So I think something like that would just change how you would put together strategic media plans.
Yeah, I think AI obviously is changing the game. It's always a hot topic at every conference I attend, but letting the AI do the creative decisioning and the optimization for you so not only saves you time from, like the A/B testing perspective and the implementation perspective, it saves your analytics team's time from also having to analyze all of that data if it's just optimizing it for you. And so you and your teams can spend way more time, being strategic partners with your clients and doing what you're really good at, and way less time having to really analyze data if something else is just optimizing it for you.
Yeah. So the final question, the classic last question at a panel: if you could give marketers one piece of advice to get the most out of their audio campaigns without relying on promo codes, what would be that piece of advice?
Well, the obvious answer is setting up attribution at the get-go. So say you've got advertising dollars for audio, add the pixel to it so you can get a gauge and insight into that audience that's converting. You can prove out the channel a lot sooner versus just throwing dollars, seeing what comes in from the promo code, hoping that'll stick. You're going to get so much more insight with pixel-based attribution versus just relying on the promo codes.
Yeah, I think it's easy to say, just track the sale. But I would recommend tracking multiple events, right? The more events that you have, the more insights that you gain. Your product page, your landing page, your checkout page, your conversion page. Like I mentioned earlier, you'll be able to track your path to purchase. Do you need to optimize your audio spot? Should you talk more about specific benefits or why this product was really meant for this audience? Does it also impact who you target in terms of your audience based on who's performing best and who's optimizing? It might even influence which hosts that you choose, right, based on the content that they're talking about and how they deliver that ad to their listeners. I think each of these things is uniquely important on their own, but then when you utilize them all together, it makes a world of a difference.
Yeah, I was thinking about this since we last talked too, and something I really wish that more marketers embraced was true omni-channel attribution. I mean, obviously we're not an audio conference, but so much of our client base is only focused on audio, and they're only measuring audio, and then they are comparing the other channels within different vacuums. But if you do true omni-channel measurement, audio really does have a right to win, and if you're measuring it within the same platform and looking at it, using the same methodology, it would really even more so help you sell yourselves.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to what Kristen mentioned earlier, where audio seems to some marketers and agencies it's too good to be true. Well, it's just comparing audio to its previous results, which we've talked about for a while. We're probably not being measured to the same standard as some other channels. So thank you guys very much for your insights. If anybody has any questions, we're going to open the floor to a QA. There's a microphone over there in the corner, and they'd be happy to pass it along. Looks like we got one.
Thank you all. That was really informative. I just have a question, just a basic question of whether you think that there's still value in promo codes at all, or whether they're actually having a disservice to podcasts at this point.
Is there still a value to promo codes, or are they doing a disservice to podcasts?
I'm gonna say it's doing a disservice because again, you're not getting the full picture. You're getting a very narrow view. You're missing out on so much information. It's not accurate. So, think again back to 4 years ago with any client that's relying heavily on a promo code. Well, they're having to set up the promo code and activate it, make sure that it's activated through a certain time frame, that it doesn't get leaked, because now you're having to deal with Retail Me Not or ChatGPT or other avenues of the code potentially getting picked up. How long is the discount good for? There's just so many things that could go wrong with it that, again, you're just not getting the full picture.
I'd also add, too, just not to play contrarian, but it is nice. We listen to podcasts every week, right? We have a rotation of podcasts that we love. These hosts are kind of like our friends. If our host talks about something that they really like, there's a high likelihood that I'm going to go and convert it too. So it is nice to be able to give attribution if you feel really strongly enough in that host where I'm like, hey, I want to help him out. I'm converting literally because of him. So I can put that in. But the Kristen mentioned, if you've heard that ad across other platforms, on other podcasts too, or maybe that code gets picked up, it's not incomplete. So I'd say, I think that it is phasing out, but it is nice from a creator point of view.
Yeah, I think you probably just need to rethink the strategy of it and use it more to be customer rewards for listening to your audience and build your audience in that way, and less so for proving your performance.
Yeah, that's actually a good point, and that might be from more of, instead of a results-driven campaign, more towards brand. So if you have an integration with an advertiser, it then would make sense because then you can at least track it back.
Yeah, just to echo a little bit of Heather and what Kristen was saying, pixel-based attribution won't. If you run a promo code and pixel-based attribution at the same time, they can still overlap. The pixel-based solution will still capture the conversions that occurred through the promo code. You're just now giving your clients the promo code a discount, which they'd love, and you're still tracking performance through a pixel code. So they can still coexist for different reasons.
Hi, y'all. Question. So, looking forward to the future of podcasts, I feel like a lot of me and my friends watch podcasts on YouTube. A lot of podcasts are now doing 100% video only. Where do you see the future of pixel-based tracking going, and how do you see that fitting into the attribution of these specific shows?
Can you ask YouTube?
Yes, I would love to.
No, I'd say, frankly, if YouTube would open up the doors a bit to allow third-party pixel tracking, which we've been asking for several years, then the future is bright and we could prove their worth and we wouldn't have to rely on them grading their own homework, right? In the meantime, we're developing something on our roadmap that kind of, models and adjusts for the YouTube exposures and knowing what impressions are happening and then looking at the conversions also happening at that same time to account for that. So we have some modeling in place that will be able to conduct attribution for YouTube. And so very quickly we'll be able to report on the performance from that from an attribution perspective. So.
But that's probably the only place where promo codes still make sense because you will be able to put either your promo code or the URL landing page on the actual description title. So that's kind of the workaround still.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for attending, and we'll stay after for a few minutes if you want to ask any questions. Thanks.